So think about this for a second. What if the absolute most critical moment for your sleep tonight actually happens, like the very second you open your eyes this morning?
Right. It's a completely backwards way of thinking about it for most of us.
Exactly. I mean, if you are caught in that cycle of just chronic exhaustion and you're relying on these expensive sleep trackers that basically just confirm how miserable you feel.
Yeah, giving you a bad score every morning.
Right. Or, you're obsessing over these elaborate 10-step nighttime routines that never seem to actually work. The thing is, you might be spending all your energy at the completely wrong end of the day.
You really might be. It forces a total reevaluation of how we approach rest, honestly, because we've been culturally conditioned to view, the hours right before bed as this sole battlefield.
Like, that's where we win or lose our sleep.
Exactly. But looking at human biology as this interconnected 24-hour loop, it shows that by 9:00 p.m., the biological die has largely already been cast.
Oh, wow. So it's already too late.
Pretty much. I mean, you cannot simply isolate the final 2 hours of your day and expect to neurochemically override what you did or what you failed to do in the preceding 22 hours.
That makes a lot of sense. And that interconnected loop is exactly what we are deconstructing today.
Yes, we are.
We're pulling from a really fascinating breakdown featured on Gary Brecka's Ultimate Human podcast. And the mission of this deep dive is to map out the exact science-backed steps required to optimize your circadian rhythm naturally.
Because we really want to move away from those surface level tips.
Right. Like, you already know not to drink 6 espressos at dinner time. We don't need to tell you that.
Exactly. We're looking for the actual biological instruction manual here.
Yeah, to achieve that deeper, really restorative sleep, even if you're traveling or dealing with time zones. Okay, let's unpack this. The source material aggressively targets this concept of the circadian anchor.
The circadian anchor, yes, that's the foundational concept.
Right. And assuming you listening already understand the basic premise of a circadian rhythm and, melatonin, we need to look at the specific mechanism that actually calibrates that clock.
Because it doesn't just run perfectly on its own without input.
No, it doesn't. The material emphasizes that natural sunlight entering the eyes within the first hour of waking is the absolute non-negotiable trigger.
What's fascinating here is the precise neurooptical mechanism at play. Because we aren't just talking about light helping you see your bedroom or whatever.
That's not about vision.
No, we are talking about these specific cells called melanopsin, containing intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells.
That is a mouthful.
It is. They usually just call them iPRGCs for short. And these specific cells in your retina, they don't form images at all.
So they aren't telling you what you're looking at.
Exactly. Their sole evolutionary purpose is just to measure ambient photon density, basically how bright the light is.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah. And when they register the specific wavelength and the intensity of unadulterated morning sunlight, they send this high-voltage electrical signal directly down the optic nerve.
Straight into the brain.
Right, straight to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is essentially the master clock in your brain.
And that signal initiates what the source describes as a profound hormone seesaw.
A seesaw is a great way to visualize it.
Because the instant that light hits the master clock, it actively suppresses your residual melatonin production.
Right. It shuts down the sleep hormone.
And at the same time, it aggressively spikes your cortisol. And I actually think we need to rescue cortisol's reputation here for a minute.
Definitely. It gets a really bad rap.
It really does. The wellness industry has totally vilified it as this toxic stress and belly fat hormone. But the cortisol awakening response, which is that sharp morning spike, is fundamentally necessary.
It's basically your biological ignition switch.
Exactly. It's rise alertness. It raises your blood pressure just slightly so you don't literally pass out when you stand up out of bed.
Which is pretty important.
Yeah, highly important. And it mobilizes glucose so you have immediate energy.
Right. And without that robust morning cortisol pulse, you are biologically stranded in this state of sleep inertia. You just feel groggy all day.
You can't quite wake up.
Exactly. But the more critical consequence of that morning light exposure is actually what it does for your evening.
Wait, really? The morning light dictates the evening?
Yeah. That initial spike of cortisol and the simultaneous suppression of melatonin, it basically acts as a countdown mechanism.
Okay, a countdown to what?
You are initiating a strict 12 to 16-hour biological timer. So it is literally the morning light that sets the amplitude or the strength of the melatonin pulse you will receive that night.
Oh, man. It is remarkably similar to an old-school mechanical egg timer.
That's a perfect analogy.
I mean, if you don't grab that dial at 7 a.m. and aggressively wind the internal spring all the way to maximum tension.
Using bright, natural lux levels from the sun.
Right. If you don't do that, the timer never accumulates the necessary mechanical energy.
No, it just sits there, slack.
Yeah. If you leave the spring slack, it is physically impossible for the bell to ring at 10:00 p.m. to signal that it's time to sleep.
And that's exactly what happens to most people. They spend their days indoors under dim artificial lighting, basically leaving their biological timer sitting at 0.
Just completely unwound.
Exactly. And then they lie in bed at night wondering why their brain isn't signaling that it's time to shut down.
Because they never set the timer.
Right. That mechanical analogy holds up perfectly when you look at how sleep pressure actually accumulates in the body. We tend to treat sleep as an isolated evening activity.
Like it's something we just consciously decide to initiate.
Yeah, like hitting a power button. But biologically, sleep is an unavoidable consequence. It is the eventual cascading result of the hormonal momentum that was generated at dawn.
So if your goal is to correct a sleep deficit, the intervention doesn't begin at sunset.
No, it begins the very moment you open your eyes.
Which naturally brings us to the logistics of, actually winding that timer. Because if the morning light is the trigger, how do we optimize the payload?
The source material is very clear on this. They outline a highly specific morning protocol.
Right. They call it the morning trifecta. Light, movement, and hydration.
Trifecta, exactly.
And the mandate here is that within 10 to 15 minutes of waking up, you must go outside. Not just gaze longingly through a double-paned kitchen window, but physically place your body out in the outdoor environment.
The distinction between looking out a window and stepping outside is mathematically huge. It's significant.
Is it really that different?
Oh, absolutely. Standard window glass actually filters out a massive percentage of the specific light wavelengths that your IPRGCs are looking for.
Ah, those cells again.
Right. And it drastically reduces the overall lux, which is the measurement of light intensity. I mean, even on a cloudy, overcast day, the ambient outdoor lux is exponentially higher than the brightest artificial lights in your house.
That's crazy to think about.
It really is. Your brain absolutely requires that raw, unfiltered photon density to confirm that the sun has actually risen.
Okay, but the protocol pushes this even further, and I know this is going to be a major sticking point for a lot of people listening.
Oh, the earthing part.
Yes. The source insists you need to stand barefoot on the earth, like right out in the grass or dirt. So you are exposing your skin and your eyes to the sun. You're layering in light movement, like a walk, stretching, or breath work, and you are physically grounding yourself.
Right. All at once.
Let me play the skeptic for a second here, because the reality of modern life is that mornings are chaotic, right?
Oh, for sure.
You're groggy, you have emails flooding in, maybe you're managing kids who won't put their shoes on, stumbling out into the damp grass barefoot within 10 minutes of waking. It just sounds completely disconnected from how regular people actually live.
Look, I get it. It sounds like a lot.
Right. My instinct, and I'm sure the instinct of basically everyone listening, is to just grab a strong cup of coffee to force the system online.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't caffeine achieve the exact same immediate alertness?
See, that is a very common biological misunderstanding. Caffeine does not actually provide energy at all.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it just masks your exhaustion.
How does that work?
So the mechanism of caffeine relies on antagonizing your adenosine receptors. Adenosine is this neurochemical that builds up the whole time you are awake, and it creates what we call sleep pressure.
Okay, so it makes you feel tired.
Exactly. And caffeine functionally blocks those receptors, so your brain simply cannot feel the fatigue that is physically still present in your body.
Oh, wow. So you're just tricking your brain.
Right. You are borrowing energy from tomorrow just to survive today. The morning trifecta, conversely, is about generating actual, sustainable, ATP-driven cellular energy.
Okay, so building real energy.
Yes, and when you step outside barefoot, you are engaging in earthing. Now, while some scientists debate the electron transfer theories of grounding.
More woo-woo stuff.
Right. But the undeniable biological reality is that sensory contact with natural temperatures, the textures of the ground, and unadulterated sunlight, all of that synchronizes your peripheral circadian clocks.
Wait, peripheral clocks? We have more than one.
Oh, yeah. You have clocks in your liver, your muscles, your skin, and by stepping outside barefoot, you are providing a systemic, undeniable environmental cue to your entire biology that the day has started.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And the movement aspect of the trifecta kind of capitalizes on that cue,
Yeah,
right?
it absolutely does.
Because by doing light stretching or going for a walk, you are activating the lymphatic system. And I was looking into this, and it's fascinating. Unlike the cardiovascular system, which obviously has the heart functioning as this central mechanical pump,
Right, pumping the blood around.
the lymphatic system has literally no pump.
None at all.
It relies entirely on muscular contraction and diaphragmatic breathing just to move cellular waste out of your tissues.
Yeah, it needs movement.
So if you transition directly from lying prone in bed, sleeping, to just sitting hunched over at a desk, that lymphatic fluid just stagnates. You are essentially leaving yesterday's cellular garbage sitting in the streets.
That is precisely the right way to visualize it. That gentle morning movement acts as the manual pump for that waste system.
Right.
And furthermore, it initiates a very gradual, sustainable rise in your core body temperature.
Which is important, right?
Very. That slow thermal climb signals the brain that the metabolic day has officially begun. And that eases the body into a state of alertness without relying on that artificial panic-inducing adrenaline spike that you get from a massive dose of early morning caffeine.
Okay, so we have light and movement. That brings us to the third pillar of the morning trifecta, which is hydration.
Right. Arguably just as important.
Now, everyone knows you wake up dehydrated. I mean, you've gone 6 to 8 hours without drinking water. But the source material is highly specific here. It's not just about chugging a glass of tap water.
No, tap water isn't going to cut it for this protocol.
Right. You have to use filtered water with a literal pinch of high-quality salt.
Yeah.
And they specifically name-drop Baja Gold sea salt.
Yeah, they are very particular about the salt.
And my immediate reaction to that was hesitation. I mean, we are so culturally conditioned to fear sodium.
We really are. Low sodium is on every label.
Exactly. But when you look at the cellular mechanics, specifically the sodium-potassium pump in our cells, it actually makes absolute sense. Our cells require a very precise voltage to fire action potentials.
Yes, our bodies run on electricity.
Right. So if you wake up depleted of electrolytes, your electrical system is essentially operating on a low battery.
That electrical foundation is completely critical. And you have to remember, standard table salt is heavily processed. It's stripped down to just pure sodium chloride.
So it's missing the good stuff.
Exactly. High-quality sea salts, like the Baja Gold mentioned in the source, they contain a huge, broad spectrum of trace minerals. We're talking magnesium, potassium, calcium.
All the electrolytes.
Right. But let's look at the specific relationship between sodium and your adrenal glands. Your adrenals, which are responsible for producing that essential morning cortisol we talked about.
The wake-up hormone.
Yes. They literally require sodium to synthesize a hormone called aldosterone. And aldosterone regulates your blood pressure and your fluid balance.
Okay, so it's a domino effect.
Exactly. By providing a mineral-dense hydration source immediately upon waking, you are giving your adrenal glands the raw chemical precursors they need. It lets them bring your autonomic nervous system online in a state that is stable and robust rather than jittery and stressed out.
Oh, I see. You are literally feeding the cortisol awakening response rather than just forcing it with a stimulant like coffee.
You're fueling it naturally.
And the material makes this huge, sweeping claim regarding this entire morning sequence. It posits that if you consistently execute this trifecta so light, movement, and mineral-dense hydration, your sleep architecture will noticeably improve within a single week.
Just 1 week.
Which is incredible. You are fundamentally aligning your behavior with the biological reality of how humans evolved to interact with the planet.
And that alignment establishes a really powerful biological momentum.
But generating that momentum in the morning is only half the equation, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately. You then have to protect that trajectory as the day progresses.
Because we have wound the timer up to maximum tension. But the reality of the modern world is that we have engineered an environment that is perfectly designed to prevent that timer from ever ringing.
We really have artificial lights, late-night food, stress.
Which brings us to the evening protocol.
Okay.
And here's where we have to fundamentally shift our perspective again. The source is adamant that nighttime is not about actively forcing your brain into unconsciousness.
You cannot bully your nervous system into sleep. It just doesn't work.
No. The evening is entirely an exercise in eliminating interference. It is about systematically dismantling these modern roadblocks that prevent your biology from executing its hardwired programming.
Because the transition into sleep is highly fragile. If the morning is about aggressively signaling the body to wake up, The evening is about creating an environment of profound biological safety.
Safety is a good word for it.
The source material provides a really rigorous framework for protecting this transition, and every single step is engineered to counter a specific physiological stressor.
Okay, let's break down that framework. The foundational rule they mention is consistency. You have to anchor your circadian rhythm by going to bed and waking up at the exact same times every single day.
Every day, completely irrespective of the weekend.
Right. The concept of, sleeping in on Sunday to catch up, the source says it's biologically flawed. It just induces a state of social jet lag.
Yeah, your brain doesn't know what a Sunday is.
Exactly. Okay, second rule. You must cease all caloric intake at least 2 hours before your intended bedtime.
Crucial step.
Third is a strict digital detox. So airplane mode on the phone, 0 screens for a minimum of 30 minutes, or the mandatory use of high-quality blue light blockers.
Right.
Fourth, you artificially drop the ambient room temperature to a very specific window of 67 to 69 degrees Fahrenheit. Fifth, you utilize a full-coverage cotton eye mask.
Total darkness.
Total darkness. And finally, the most counterintuitive step of all, a hot shower finishing with a 30-second blast of cold water.
Yes, the contrast shower.
It sounds wild. But let's examine that metabolic conflict regarding digestion first. The directive to stop eating 2 hours prior to bed, that is rooted in hemodynamic distribution, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Digestion is an intensely thermogenic and energy-demanding process.
It creates heat.
Lots of heat. When you eat a large meal, your body must divert massive amounts of blood flow to the splenic bed, which is just a fancy term for your gastrointestinal tract.
Right, to process the food.
And this keeps your core body temperature elevated, and your metabolism is functioning at a very high output. But sleep, conversely, requires a significant drop in core body temperature and a major shift toward a parasympathetic restorative state.
So they're actively fighting each other.
Exactly. If you are actively digesting a heavy meal at 10:30 p.m., your metabolic systems are locked in a functional tug-of-war with your circadian sleep drive.
The body is essentially trying to perform heavy lifting while the brain is trying to shut the factory down.
You can't do both.
It's impossible to do both optimally. And speaking of that required drop in core body temperature, here's where it gets really interesting. The contrast shower.
People struggle to understand this one.
I mean, the protocol demands you take a hot shower, but right before you get out, you turn the water to cold for 30 seconds. On the surface, this sounds like pure madness.
That sounds like torture to some people.
It does. Because the universal assumption is that cold water is a shock tactic used to wake you up. I mean, people take cold plunges in the morning for adrenaline. Why on earth would you subject yourself to freezing water when you are actively trying to calm your nervous system for sleep?
The confusion really stems from misunderstanding the thermodynamics of the human body.
Okay, how does it actually work?
So when you take a hot shower, the heat causes peripheral vasodilation.
What it means?
It means the blood vessels near the surface of your skin expand. They do this to draw blood away from your core and out to your extremities to dissipate the heat.
Oh, to cool you down?
Exactly. You feel warm on your skin, but your core is actually losing heat.
Okay, so then what happens when you hit the cold water?
When you immediately follow that hot water with a 30-second blast of cold water, you trigger intense, rapid peripheral vasoconstriction.
The vessels shrink.
Right. Those surface vessels clamp shut violently.
Right. So the blood, which has just been cooled by the cold water on the surface of the skin, is forcibly shunted deep back into the core of the body.
You've got it.
You aren't just cooling the skin, you are literally injecting a wave of cooled blood directly into your internal organs.
That is the exact mechanism.
Yeah.
And that rapid forced drop in internal core temperature, it basically mimics the natural thermal drop that occurs in the outside environment at twilight.
When the sun goes down.
Right. The brain registers that sudden internal cooling and interprets it as the ultimate biological signal that the sun has set, and it is safe to initiate sleep onset.
So it is a physiological trigger, not a psychological stimulant.
Exactly. It's tricking your biology into safety.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the symmetry of this entire 24-hour loop is just incredible. I mean, look at what we were doing in the morning. We were actively seeking heat through movement, and we were hunting for absolute blinding brightness by staring into the morning sun.
Pushing everything up.
Right. Driving the body's internal temperature and light intake as high as possible. And now, 12 hours later, we are engineering the exact inverse environment.
The complete opposite.
We are enforcing an absolute drop in temperature, utilizing the 67-degree room and that thermodynamic trick of the cold shower. And we are enforcing absolute inescapable darkness.
And that darkness is paramount. It really is. Even a minimal amount of ambient light in the bedroom, like from a street lamp, it can penetrate the eyelids.
Even when your eyes are closed.
Yes. And it gets registered by those same IPRGCs we discussed earlier, and that will blunt the amplitude of your melatonin release.
Which ruins your sleep quality.
Right. This is why the digital detox and the blue light blockers are so critical leading up to bed. Screens emit the exact wavelength of blue light that signals midday sun to your brain.
So your brain thinks it's noon.
Basically.
Yeah.
And it is also why the full coverage cotton eye mask isn't just a comfort accessory. It is a clinical tool used to guarantee the complete optical blackout required to maximize your time in deep, slow wave sleep.
Okay, so we've mastered the external environment. We've managed the light, manipulated the temperature, and we halted digestion. We have constructed the perfect biological cave.
An ultimate sleep sanctuary.
Exactly. But here's the reality. You can be lying in a perfectly chilled, pitch-black room, fully digested, and still find yourself staring into the void, completely unable to sleep.
Oh, absolutely. It happens all the time.
Because the external environment is only half the battle. And the source material pivots here to what they call the internal wind down, targeting the microenvironments inside your body and your brain.
Right. This is where we move from macro environmental factors down to cellular and neurological interference. The material focuses heavily on two specific areas that most people never, ever associate with sleep latency.
Yeah?
The oral microbiome and the mechanical interruption of rumination.
Let me tell you, the emphasis on the oral biome was genuinely shocking to me. I think most of us view brushing our teeth purely through the lens of cavity prevention or just, fresh breath.
Yeah, strictly dental health.
Right. But the protocol outlines an incredibly rigorous, multi-step oral hygiene routine right before bed. You are instructed to use a soft-bristled toothbrush. You have to swap out traditional fluoride for a toothpaste containing hydroxyapatite.
Yes, that's a key swap.
You thoroughly floss, aggressively scrape the tongue with a copper tongue scraper, and then you finish by swishing coconut oil in your mouth for 1 to 2 minutes, which is a practice known as oil pulling.
Right. And to understand why this massive routine is included in a sleep protocol, you have to understand the systemic nature of the immune system.
Okay, how do those connect?
Well, the human mouth is a massive bacterial reservoir. During the day, regular swallowing and saliva production keep that bacterial load somewhat managed.
You're flushing it out constantly.
Exactly. But at night, your saliva production drops precipitously. So if you go to sleep with a high population of pathogenic bacteria sitting subgingivally, which means below the gum line, those bacteria can actually enter the bloodstream.
And when bacteria enter the bloodstream, the body doesn't just ignore it.
No, it mounts a full immune response.
I like to visualize the body's repair systems during sleep as a city's public works department. I mean, deep sleep is when the crews are supposed to be out repairing the roads, rebuilding muscle tissue, and clearing out the amyloid beta plaque from the brain.
That's a great analogy.
But if you have a massive bacterial load in your mouth, you're essentially starting a riot in the city center. The body has to divert all its emergency resources away from long-term repair and send them to fight the immediate low-grade systemic inflammation caused by the oral bacteria.
That is an incredibly accurate way to picture it. The release of inflammatory cytokines from that immune response, it directly disrupts your sleep architecture.
It physically wakes you up.
It might not fully wake you up, but it specifically reduces the amount of time you spend in restorative REM and deep sleep.
Wow.
So by utilizing this strict oral protocol, you are drastically reducing that hidden immune burden. The copper tongue scraper physically removes bacterial colonies. The lauric acid in the coconut oil directly disrupts the lipid bilayers of the bad bacteria.
It breaks them down.
Right. And the use of hydroxyapatite is crucial here.
Why not just use regular fluoride?
Because unlike traditional harsh antibacterial agents that can indiscriminately wipe out your entire beneficial oral microbiome, hydroxyapatite is biomimetic.
Meaning it mimics biology.
Exactly. It provides the exact calcium and phosphate minerals the enamel needs to remineralize itself naturally overnight, so it's strengthening the teeth without creating dysbiosis or imbalance in the mouth.
It is entirely reframing dental hygiene as an immune-sparing sleep hack.
It really is.
So we've neutralized the bacterial riot. But what about the neurological riot? The anxiety, the looping thoughts, the mental to-do lists that suddenly seem incredibly urgent the exact moment your head hits the pillow.
The racing mind, it's the hardest part for most people.
It really is. Now, the source provides a breathwork and visualization protocol to literally force the mind to power down.
Yes, and the mechanical component of this protocol relies heavily on the vagus nerve.
How does the breathing work?
You are instructed to inhale slowly through the nose, hold the breath for a count of 3, and then exhale slowly and forcefully through pursed lips.
Like blowing out a candle.
Exactly, or like blowing through a tiny straw. You want to create resistance, and you repeat this cycle for 10 full breaths.
Though the source amusingly notes that the creator of this protocol claims they rarely ever make it to breath number 10 before just losing consciousness.
Yeah, it's remarkably effective.
But I do have to push back on the second half of this instruction, because as you are executing this pursed lip breathing, you are supposed to actively visualize pulling all the abstract, anxious thoughts from your brain down into your lungs, and then mentally watch yourself exhaling that dark, cluttered energy out of your body.
Right, the visualization aspect.
Look, I understand the physiology of breathwork, the baroreceptor reflex, the slowing of the heart rate. That is measurable science.
We can track that on monitors.
Right. But the visualization aspect, telling someone to imagine their thoughts moving into their lungs sounds perilously close to unsupported, mystical woo-woo. Does visualization actually alter our neurology, or is it just a distraction?
It is an entirely valid skepticism if you view visualization as, like, magic. But we have to analyze this through the lens of cognitive neuroscience.
Okay, lay it on me.
So the brain network responsible for that anxious rumination is called the default mode network, or DMN. When you are lying in the dark with no external stimuli, the DMN activates, and it absolutely loves to loop unresolved abstract concepts.
Just playing the same worries over and over.
Right, and you cannot simply tell the DMN to stop thinking. It doesn't work. It requires a cognitive offload.
So you have to give it a job to do.
Exactly. The visualization provides a highly specific, sensory-rich task. By forcing your consciousness to coordinate a complex visual construct, like the movement of abstract thoughts transforming into physical density in the lungs, with the mechanical reality of your breath, you are heavily taxing your working memory. Oh, I see. You're giving it too much to do.
Right. You are actively interrupting the DMN's ability to sustain the anxiety loop.
Yeah.
You are mechanically shifting your nervous system into a parasympathetic state via the pursed lip exhale, while simultaneously starving the anxiety centers of the brain of their processing power.
It is a highly practical neurological override. That is fascinating.
It really is. It isn't magic at all. It's just hijacking your brain's processing bandwidth so can't worry.
That reframes it completely. Now, for the people who execute the breath work, they maintain the perfect room temperature, they do the earthing, and they still find their mental chatter running at full volume. The source does delve into targeted supplementation.
Yes, as a final layer of intervention.
Specifically, it highlights magnesium L-threonate, which is often referred to as MAG3 and 8, and folinic acid. But we need to be really clear here. These are not heavy-duty pharmaceutical sedatives that forcefully knock you out and leave you with a chemical hangover the next morning.
No, absolutely not. They operate on an entirely different physiological pathway. Let's look at magnesium L-threonate first.
Sure. So most standard magnesium supplements, like magnesium oxide, for example, they are poorly absorbed and rarely make it past the digestive tract in any significant quantities.
You just excrete them.
Right. But L-threonate was specifically engineered to cross the blood-brain barrier.
Oh, so it gets right into the brain.
Yes. Once inside, it significantly elevates magnesium levels in the cerebrospinal fluid. And this is critical because magnesium binds to and actually blocks NMDA receptors in the brain.
What do those receptors do?
They are the primary receptors for glutamate, which is our main excitatory neurotransmitter.
So the L-threonate is essentially turning down the volume knob on the brain's excitatory pathways. It quiets the static.
Exactly. It just lowers the baseline level of excitation in the brain.
And what about the folinic acid?
So folinic acid plays a vital role in the methylation cycle. Many people who suffer from racing thoughts at night have genetic variations, like the MTHFR mutation, that impair their ability to efficiently methylate.
Okay, and why does methylation matter for sleep?
Because methylation is required to break down and clear out excitatory neurotransmitters, like dopamine and norepinephrine.
The stress and alertness chemicals.
Right. If you can't clear them efficiently, they literally pool in the synapses, leaving your brain stuck in a state of high alert. Providing bioavailable folinic acid supports that degradation pathway, allowing the brain to physically clear the biochemical backlog of the day's stress.
So what does this all mean? When we aggregate every single protocol from this breakdown of the Ultimate Human podcast, the paradigm shift is absolute.
It completely changes how we view rest.
It really does. Sleep is not a switch you lazily flip at 11 p.m.
Oh.
It is an intricate, unforgiving 24-hour biological symphony. It requires the high-voltage shock of unfiltered morning sunlight and physical movement to tension the mainspring of your circadian timer.
And it demands the electrical stability of mineral-dense hydration.
Yes. And it requires the ruthless, systematic elimination of modern interferences in the evening, halting the thermogenic furnace of digestion, mimicking the thermal drop of twilight with the cold shower, blinding the optical sensors with an eye mask, and utilizing neuroscience to shut down the brain's default anxiety loops.
It's all connected.
Your body possesses the inherent evolutionary programming required to sleep perfectly. You just have to stop suffocating that programming with artificial environments and start syncing your behavior with the rotation of the planet.
This raises an important question for everyone listening, though, because the mechanics we've detailed today are absolutely fascinating, but information decoupled from action is totally useless.
You have to actually do it.
Exactly. The source material is emphatic on this point. This biological loop is a daily requirement. Consistency is the ultimate metric of success here.
Right. You cannot execute the morning trifecta on Monday, ignore it on Tuesday, and expect your biology to just reward you with deep sleep on Wednesday.
No, the suprachiasmatic nucleus thrives on predictability. You are the sole architect of the environmental signals your biology receives.
You have to step up and actually be the conductor of your own physiology. And as we close out this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to really mull over.
That's a big one.
Consider everything we've just explored. If our fundamental neurological capacity to repair our cells, consolidate our memories, and clear the toxic buildup from our brains at night is so inextricably genetically linked to the rising sun, the physical touch of the earth, and the ambient drop in evening temperatures,
Yeah.
how much of the chronic anxiety, the pervasive brain fog, and the bone-deep exhaustion that defines modern society is simply an evolutionary mismatch? Are we actually sick, or are we simply experiencing the inevitable symptoms of living our entire lives indoors, fundamentally disconnected from the very planet we evolved to sync with?
It is a profound perspective shift, and one that really reframes exhaustion as a consequence of environment rather than a failure of the individual.
It absolutely does. Keep that in mind tomorrow morning when your alarm goes off. Make the choice to step out the front door before you reach for the coffee. Tension your timer, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.